Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So in here we want to do the image class. So I'm going to copy some stuff from here to the image, just that part. Okay, so the importance of the image class is that almost every website deals with images. So you're going to have to upload some images one way or another. And it's a bad idea to just upload images as they are without having to resize them, because people upload images of very large sizes. You need to have control over that, because that affects the load time of your website. If someone uploads an image that's 1 megabyte, that's way too much, because the entire page that you load should be 1 MB, 1.5 MB at most. So if one image is 1 megabyte, then you're already losing on the load time there. And also you need to be able to crop your images. So we're going to make two functions in here, one resize, one crop. Now the reason to crop images is that if you're on your website and you're loading an image that's maybe 1000 by 2000 pixels, something like this, and then you resize it to 100 by 200 pixels, this is a waste, because this file could be maybe 1 MB large, but then if you could crop it to this size, because this is really what you want, because your display area is this size, you could reduce it to even 10 kilobytes and save on bandwidth like that. So cropping is just as important as resize. So the rule of thumb is, the one I follow, is that when uploading images, always resize them. So whenever a user uploads an image, resize it. And then when you're displaying the image, crop that image into a thumbnail. That way you show the thumbnail version instead. All right, so let's go ahead and look at how we can create a function that crops images and resizes them as well. So let's start with the resize, because actually the resize and the cropping are pretty much the same. It's just one function that does all that. I'm going to show you that. Public function resize, and let's do this. So in order to resize, we need the file name, obviously, and this is a string, I guess. This is not optional. And then we need the maximum max size, I guess. That's what we're going to call it. Let's put it at 700, like that, as a default value, 700 pixels, like this. Now, the return, what we're going to return here is a string, because we're just going to return the path of the new file that we've resized. Actually, this is the same file here, right? So I'm not really sure about what we are returning here. Yeah, actually it's a string. Let's leave it there. So in order to make sure that the images can be cropped or resized, we need to allow the GD library. We need to enable the GD library. So you have to make sure that GD library is enabled on your system. You can do that by going to the control panel, and you can click on config and get the php.ini file like that. So this is the php.ini file. However, if your system is different a little bit, you can find this php.ini file inside the PHP folder wherever you installed your server. So in the case where you installed XAMPP, you're going to find it inside C, XAMPP, PHP, and then there'll be php.ini file. If the file isn't there, just create it. Just type php.ini and then add the extension. So here what we are looking for is extension. So I'm going to search there. You can open this in your Sublime Text instead. It might be easier to find things that you're looking for, because it's got better search options. But let's just keep going here. So there's a section where there's a lot of extensions. and that's what I'm looking for, and there it is. So this area right here, oh my god, I just got lost there once I zoomed out. What happened? Okay, let me do another search. Let's go find. Okay, there we go. All right, so there's this excuse me, there's this list of extensions here, and wherever you see a semicolon at the beginning, it means it's commented out. So you should just remove the semicolon on this one that says extension is equal to GD. So make sure that has no semicolon here. Now, in a later video, I'm going to show you how your framework can check by itself which libraries are not loaded or which extensions are not loaded, so it can warn the user to actually load them. All right, so once you're done with that, you remove that semicolon at the beginning, then you save the file. And once you save, you have to stop and start Apache again. So you do a stop here, and then you start it again. That way it will refresh and load that GD extension. So we need that to edit images. Okay, so first of all, we need to know if the file actually exists, right? So we'll say if file exists, file name, then we can continue. Now, in this case, instead of wrapping everything within the if file exists, what we will do is instead we'll return the file name. If the file does not exist, so let's put a not exist, then let's return the file name. That way we just don't proceed if the file does not exist. And then we don't have to wrap everything inside curly braces like that. Okay, so great. Now, if that is good, let's look at what type of file we have in this case, because there are many image types. So there's a function conveniently called MIME content type, like that. It gives you what content type you have. So you can echo these things to see what's going on if you want to. So if you want to do that kind of thing, and we'll see MIME content type. I'm thinking, weighing the pros and cons here. Okay, let's move on for a bit. We can do some stuff later. I actually do actually show how to do this in other videos, in plenty of videos where we resize and crop images. There's specific videos dedicated to that, so you can watch them on my channel if you want more detail, in case I'm going too fast for you. So we're going to say if type. So here is where we're looking for a specific type here. Now, if you don't know the type of a file, just load a file in your let me actually just show you that, because you never know, you might need that kind of thing. For example, if I go to my plugin.php, right click and say new file. Okay, and then save this new file as test.txt, and then write some stuff. Just say some stuff like that. Okay, so there's a file here called test.txt, and what I can do is go to my, since the basic auth plugin actually runs throughout, so I can do stuff in here and it will show me immediately. So I can just say echo MIME content type, and then the file name is test.txt, like that. So just like that, it will show me what's going on. If I now refresh, you see here it shows me it's text/plain. So that's how you can know what to look for. So just get a file, put it in there, and check the content type, and it will show you. Okay, so let's remove that and let's delete the test.txt. Okay, so back here, I'm going to say if. Actually, let's use a switch statement because it's much better and much cleaner in this case. Let's use type there. So in the case where our image is of type image JPEG, like that, then we're going to say image is equal to, there's a function called image create from JPEG. So as you can see here, there are multiple of these functions. There's one from PNG, one from JPEG, one from GIF. There's even one from WebP, though it's not yet fully integrated into Sublime Text, I guess. Maybe I should update. Okay, so image create from JPEG, and then we put our file name in there. Simple and straightforward. Okay, so let's do more cases here. I'm going to duplicate a few more times. So it's up to you how many of these you want to support. So I'll replace that with PNG. And I'll replace this one with, who uses GIF anymore? But anyway, let's not discriminate. Then there's image create from WebP as well, because that's the new. In this case, if it's none of these, let's just return the file name and forget about it. So we don't continue because we don't recognize this file, and we move on. So there it is. So we are creating an image resource from another file. Now the reason we are doing this is because the function, there's actually just one function that does this, that does the cropping. It's called image, wait a minute, what is it called? Image copy, actually. So it's like copying an image, but it's this one, image copy resampled, this one. So as you can see, it's got a lot of requirements, this function here. First of all, it requires a destination image. This is an image resource, not a file name, but an image resource. An image resource is an area in memory where you load the entire image and you have access to very specific pixels there. So that's an image resource. So you need the destination image resource and the source image resource. So you need two image resources. Here we've created one called image. This is like the source. This one here. That's why we use that function to do that. And then it needs to know the destination X and Y values. Where do you want? It's like we're doing a copy and paste. This is what we are doing here. But then when we paste the image, we stretch it out to a specific width and height in order to simulate a cropping. So we are not really doing a crop. It's something like this, where you have one original image here with a certain width and height, and then you create another destination image smaller than this one. So that's how we resize. And then it's going to ask you, this corner here, where does it start over here? Because you could start it outside the image and then just, it's like we're copying and pasting this image onto this, but how much of it how are we stretching it when pasting? Are we making an exact copy? What are we doing exactly? So these are the details that it wants here. Destination XY, and then the source XY as well, and then the destination width and height, and the source width and height. So these are the values we need to calculate. We're going to need to calculate these ones, but these we just generate. So I will do this to hide that. And then once we finish with this, we can destroy this source image, because at this point we've made a copy. So there's a function called image destroy. It's very important to remember this, because otherwise you have these image resources take quite an amount of RAM. So it's always good to destroy them immediately. They are not useful. So once we have the source image, in this case, at least I know, is image. This is the one we are creating here. So I'll put that there, and image destroy over here. This is the destination image, right? We've destroyed this one, but then we need to save that destination image file. So I'm going to copy this switch statement again and put it over here like so. And in this case, we're deciding what function to use to save the image. So for example, in a JPEG, the function is called image JPEG conveniently, right? It's like that, image JPEG. And the thing I want to save is the destination image. So I know I can put that there. So destination image. Now this is the image resource. Now we need to tell it the file name. If you don't give it the file name, it will just dump that onto the browser. So we don't want to dump the image into the browser. We want to send it to the file name. So put that file name over here. There's also this quality feature here on JPEG. You can put it at 100% if you want, but 90 is a good number. So leave it at quality 90. 100 is just bloated and you may not see an increase in quality anyway. It depends. Okay, so we have image JPEG. Same thing here. We're going to have image PNG. There is also a function like that. And of course, its destination image and file name. Let's grab those two. You can put a quality feature as well here. I don't know if it actually works for PNG, but just put it there. Who knows? Maybe it does. You can do some tests and see if it does work. And obviously, you guessed it, there's image GIF. This one, I don't think there's a quality setting at all. But let's see. Image GIF. Yeah, there it is. GIF or GIF. I've always called it GIF. Okay, and then finally, image WebP, as you would expect. So I think this one does use the quality setting. So image WebP, like that. Okay, great. If none of these work, we can't just export the file name. Can we though? Maybe we can, right? Just return the file name, the original file name, yeah? Okay, then we destroy that image again. This one that the image resource, because remember this is an image resource, not just a file name. So let's destroy that one. So what have we done so far? Let's recap. We have checked if the file exists, checked its type, and then we've created an image resource and then destroyed that image resource and then saved the supposed resized image in this case, which is this one. So I'll just put a variable there like so. Now we need this to run, excuse me, for this to actually work. And in order for that to happen, we need to calculate these. This is the hard part here, calculating these values here. But before we do that, we need to create this new image resource, right? So we can use, let's see, dest image is equal to image create true color. So this image create true color. There we go. This one only needs the width and height, right? So we're just going to get the source width and source height from there. Let me copy this. Let's turn these guys into variables, right? So we need to create those values, right? Source width and source height and image create. So we've created that to put it there. So we have one image, and then we are copying this image onto the destination. Now we need to know what the destination width and height will be. Now keep in mind we have this max size here, which means we're telling it whether the width or the height, you have to cap it. The maximum, the biggest of the two, should actually be limited to 700 pixels. So in order for us to know how much to resize, we need to know the width and height of the source. So here we're going to say source width and height, right? Actually, this shouldn't be source width, and this should be destination width and height. Ugh, sorry, my bad here. This can be a little confusing, so But what is the source width and height? So it's easy to get the source and the width of the image resource because there's a function for that. So the function is called image. So there's image sx like this. Okay. And let's actually just duplicate this and change this to h. And this one goes to y. It's as simple as that. So this one gets you the x and the y values, which is the height and the width of the source image. So this image, we create a resource, we grab the width and the height from there. Those are the values we will use here as well. So I'm going to put those there now that we have them. Okay, so now we just need to know the destination width and height. So let's do a little bit of calculation. Now, after we create this, we need to do some alpha blending actually. So let me just do that real quick before I forget. I usually forget this. If type is equal to image/png, we need to do some alpha blending. So now the reason we need to do this here is because if you have a PNG image and you try to resize it, it's going to work just fine. But if you don't tell it to maintain the transparency, then the resulting image will have a black where there was transparency. So I doubt that's what you want. So let's make sure there's alpha blending going on there. What I meant to actually say is we should avoid blending the alpha. So let's do, there's a function called image. Now, by the way, if you want to know, you may be wondering, where are these functions coming from? How do I know to use this function here and there and so on? The package that contains these functions is called GD library. It comes with PHP. So on that note, actually, before I forget, okay, let me put these functions rather quickly before I forget them. So there's image alpha blending. Okay, so the blend mode, let's just put false there. We don't want to blend the alpha because you can tell it to actually mix the alpha if you're the alpha channel, the transparency, to mix it with the destination image in case you are pasting several images, because you can do so much with this GD library. You can merge images together, create image compilations and all that. So we are telling it not to blend the alpha actually. And then we'll say alpha, image save alpha. That's the function I'm looking for. So from the image here, the flag, the save flag here is just true. Let's just tell it to save the alpha as well. So actually this is for the destination image, not this one. So that's for the destination image. Okay, so that makes sure we preserve our transparency here. So if you want to know more about the GD library, just do a Google search. There's on php.net, you can just go for GD library, and then it will give you all the functions that you are seeing here and what they mean. There's all kinds of descriptions there for those as well. So you can go into detail and see what you can do. Even for putting things like watermarks on images, copywriting images and all that, you can do this with the GD library. There's so much you can do actually. Okay, so with this in mind, we have, let me unmute this for a second. Now I know for a fact that the destination X and Y will be 0, 0, because when I'm copying an image and resizing it, right, from a big one to a small one, let's imagine the image is like this, and I'm merging it with one that's smaller. I still need the X and Y to be the same. The XY is this corner right here. So that should map exactly to this one. And even the edge here should map to that edge, and then this edge to that edge, and so on. It's just that this is smaller than this one. So we're not doing any cropping here. We are mapping one to one like that. So in this case where we're doing this, the destination X will be 0, the destination Y will be 0. So the same thing on the source XY will be 0, 0, because we are copying from the top left corner of both of these, copying from one top left corner and pasting on the other top left corner. So yeah, this is great. This is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0 for all of these. The only variables here will be these ones here. So we already have these. So really the ones we're trying to make are the destination width and height. That's the only variable we do not know right now. Okay, so before we even create this destination, we will have to calculate to create those. But before we put these here, this function has become funny these days. A long time ago, you could give it values like, for example, on destination width, you can say 7, maybe 150.4, and it will just round it off to an integer. But these days, it wants you to give it an integer, not a floating point number, nothing with decimals. So to ensure we don't have that, let's just do a round off like that. And same thing with destination height. Let's do a rounding off like that. Okay, great. Now in the middle here, between knowing the source width and the height, we need to calculate the destination width and height. So all the calculation now goes in the middle here, but the rest of this is actually done, because once we have those, we'll create a new image and then make sure we are preserving alpha if we need to, and then just making a copy, a resampled copy, destroying the original image and then saving. So how do we go about calculating? So let me explain how the calculation process here will go. So let me explain visually what we are doing here. Let's come back here. Okay, so let's imagine our image is 1000 by 500. So we imagine simpler, what's this? A simpler situation here. So this one is 1000 pixels and this one is 500 pixels. Okay, great. So 500 by 1000. Now let's say we want to resize this to 100 over 50, right? So that it's easier to imagine because we're just removing zeros there. So we want to resize it to 100 over 50 there. That's a terrible 5. Okay, great. So how do we go about knowing the numbers? So let's say the limit here, we've been told that the limit, the max size in this case, max size is 100. So we want to resize any image and limit it to 100 pixels, whichever side is bigger than the other. So how do we go about doing this? So let's start by checking to see which of the two is bigger than the other. So we should be able to do exactly the same thing for an image that is like this instead, right? So this image is instead 500 by 1000. So whatever math we do here should work here as well. So this one is 1000 pixels over here. And we want to reduce it to 50 by 100. So 50, bear with me, my mouse here. I don't have a good surface for my mouse. Okay, there we go. So first situation, second. So let's start with the first one here. So the limit we imagine is 100. This one here, the max size, in this case is 700, yes, but let's imagine it's 100. So what we're going to do is, first of all, let's decide which of the two is bigger, because we know the source width and height, right? So let's say if source width is greater than source height, okay? And then we can have an else, which means the opposite is true. So if the height is greater, we go here. If the width is greater, this will go here if both width and height are exactly the same, and we'll still get the same calculated answer at the end of the day. So in this case, we want, if the width is bigger, so of course we can create the destination now, the destination width. So we know the source width is the greatest, and we know that we should limit the greater side to the max size we've been given here. So I say we are imagining the source width is 1000, but we want to limit it to 100. So we're going to set the destination to the limit like that. Okay, so destination width becomes the max. Now the question is, if we set 1000 to 100, right, we limit it to 1, what then should we set the 500 to? In this case we know it's 50, but how do we arrive at that value? So what we're going to do is find the ratio between the width and height, so that whatever value we have here, we know what number to multiply the value here to get exactly the same thing. So in this case, we're going to do this. We're going to look at the width. In this case, the width is, no, the height is smaller. So let's look at that. We're going to do 500 and divide that by 1000. Okay. So if we do a division here, we're going to have 5 over 10. If we remove both zeros here, that's 5 over 10. And then 5, 1 divided there, that's 2. So we're going to get half. So our answer here is half. And then we multiply this by the max, which is 100, right? Max is 100 to get the value that we need. So half times 100 is what? It's 50. So that actually works. Let's look at this situation here where the opposite is true. So we start with this one is bigger, right? So if it's bigger, we set it to the max. So it's 100. And then the other side is 500, which is exactly what we had here. So we're just going to do the same ratio, but in reverse. It will still be 500 divided by 1000 multiplied by the max, which will give us 50 as well. So it's actually a very simple calculation here. So let's do destination height. Yes, that's the one missing. So in this case, like I said, we look at the value that's smaller. So in this way, the value that's smaller is the source height, and then we divide that by the source width, and then multiply the answer by the max size, like so. Okay, and so as you can see, we have generated the destination width and height, which we can put here. The source width and height already exist, and then since these source x and y will all be 0, it means we have everything required. As you can see, everything we've put here is just to satisfy this function right here. This is the only one function that really matters, but it has special needs, these here and that, and this is what everything else is doing here. It's just to give it the variables it needs. So on the other side, we just do the opposite of this. I'm going to do paste here like so, and destination width, this will change to destination height because destination height is bigger here, so we set that, we cap it with the max size, and then we look at the destination width and we divide starting with a smaller number and then the bigger number, and then multiply that by max size. It's as simple as that. Now there's only one slight problem. Let's imagine, for example, this image is 1000 by 500, right? And then the max is, instead of 100 pixels, we're resizing to 1500 pixels. Yeah, this is not really resizing because it may look stupid, but this is what happens sometimes. You find that you have an image that's 250 pixels over maybe 300, 250 by 300. And then you've put your max limit at 1000 pixels. So what essentially will happen is that you're going to have a larger image than what you started with. The destination image will have 1500 pixels while the original had 250. So that's not good because then you have a bigger image. You need more space to save that image, which is all useless. So in that case, we need to account for that to avoid going bigger, because it's very possible to enlarge an image just like you are resizing, depending on the variables you choose. In this case, if you make your destination width and height bigger than the source width and height, you're going to get a bigger image than you started with. So just like you can resize, you can expand as well. So let's avoid that situation. So since we know that the destination width is the one that will be set to the max height, let's just check to see if the width is greater than the max, or the max. Wait, which one are we checking for? So we'll check, we'll put an if statement and say if max, wait. The anomaly is when, I'm getting a little bit confused here with the math. Not very good at math, me. So don't mind my math skills here. So if the destination width is less, actually, than the max size? No, not the destination. We should look at the source, right? Let's look at the source. Is this right? Okay, let me think about it just a second. So if, for example, my source is 1000, but I want to resize to 1500, this is when the anomaly happens. So in this case, it means the source width is smaller than the max. Okay, so source width smaller than the max. So if source width is smaller than the max, okay, great. So things are working out. So then let's change the max. So we cap it to the source width instead, like that. So we don't need these, actually. It can be like that. Great. That way we limit it to what we want. So good. Let's come down here and do the same thing. Source height instead. And source height. Okay, great. So essentially what we're doing here is that if, for example, my cap is at 1500, the image is 1000, then we reduce the maximum to match the current image to that small number. That way we don't create a larger image than what we started with. We just get exactly the same image in this case, which means we might not need, you may be asking yourself, why are we resizing an image if it's exactly the same? Let's say our image is 250 pixels and we want to limit to 1000, right? In that case, you might be thinking, okay, the image is already smaller than the limit, so why bother resizing it? Well, it's very important because when saving, there's quality settings as well. Some images are saved with extra quality. So you find that there's a small image that's 250 pixels, but it's 1 megabyte in size. It may be small in resolution, but the quality is quite high because maybe the dots per inch are larger and stuff like that. So in that case, when you resize it, you get a smaller size image. It will be the same in resolution, but the file size will be smaller. So even when the image is much smaller, always resize it. And another reason to resize images is because people can hide malicious code inside images. I think I've shown a video where you can actually do that. You can put text inside your image and save it, text that you can actually use to hack a website sometimes. So if you do a resize, an image resize, it will mess with all that data in there, especially if it's a lossy file like JPEG here, where you even reduce the quality settings a little bit there. So this is kind of part of a security feature to make sure what you are saving are actual images. All right, so I think this does it. So let's do a test and see if everything works as intended. Yeah, we can do a very simple test. Let's put an image in this folder. So I will go to my desktop where I have some images over here. Actually, let me come back here. There are bigger images here. Wow, 17 megabytes. Wow, these images are quite large. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyway, this is too big. 17. Let me try 8 MB. Or maybe this 11 MB. All right. So a picture of my wife there. Where do I take this? Let me come back here. Remove open folder. Let me paste that image over here. Okay, so there we go. There is an image. This is 11 megabytes. This is 5,000 by... Wow, this is huge. I don't even know. You know, you could very easily run out of RAM on these... you could very easily run out of RAM on this while trying to resize images if the image resolution is too big. Not the file size, but the image resolution. So, maybe, I don't know of a way to limit that. Let me rename this to image. 1 second there. So image.jpg. And let's do a test, shall we? I'm going to go to the basic auth plugin again, which is right there. So I'm going to say image is equal to new image, like that. Okay, so this is inside the core namespace. So we have to instantiate it as core/image, like that. Or you can just say use image, and then you don't need to put that there like we did here. But let's do it this way. And I'm going to get a file name here. So I'll say image and then say resize. And the thing I'm looking for is just the file name, which is image.jpg. Since it's inside the main directory, it will remain as such. So once I do this, it's going to do a resize. It's going to resize this very image and make it smaller. But if I don't want to replace this image, what I can do is do a copy first and say use the function copy, which tells you the source. Source is image.jpg, and then excuse me, the second one is the resized. So I'll say image resized, like that, .jpg. Yeah, so we make a copy and we're going to resize the image resized instead, like that. Okay, great. So all we have to do is just load the page, and we should have two files here, one original, one resized. So let's see how well that will run. So I'm just going to refresh the page, and we have a syntax error. So unexpected token break on line 77. Okay, great. I do love fixing errors, I will admit that. And this is what differentiates a good programmer from a terrible one. So learn how to love debugging. Don't hate it, because if you do, you're going to have a bad time coding. So let's look at line 77. It's very neat that it tells us exactly where the problem is, which is awesome. So here it's telling me that break is unexpected, which usually means there's no semicolon on the previous line. So let's just put that. That's because it expected a semicolon, but it got this instead. So let's go there. Let's refresh. And the fact that it's loading for a while, so it probably means things are working. But so return value must be of type string, none returned. Ah, right. Okay, so that's my bad. It's just saying that in this function called resize, a return value of type string should be done, but we didn't return anything. So it doesn't seem like a big error here. It's just at the end, it found that it wasn't allowed to return anything. So we can just put a return value. We don't really need to return file name, like that. Okay, that ends it. But if you look here, we have a resized version in the folder. So let's go and check it out, what's going on here. Plugin PHP, there we go. So as you can see, the resolution is 5000 by 7000, and this one is limited to 558 by 700. So we've managed to resize the image, and look at the difference in size. This one is 12 megabytes, this one is 37 kilobytes. So huge difference here. And if you look at the image, you can see the quality and check for yourself if the quality is good enough or not, and then adjust it as required, right? So resize several images, see the quality. If you don't like it, change that 90 we put there to something else. Yeah, maybe 98. 100 is a waste of space, so just don't get there. Maybe 98 I think will be good, but it's up to you really. You can put whatever you want. All right, so that's how we resize images, and that's great. Let's look at maybe we can have a version that's wider than it is high. So let me look for these other images here, because we have to test both kinds. We've tested the one that's long top to down, but let's do one that's wider than it is. Where are all the images here? What really am I looking for? Okay, let me just copy this one. Let's come back to plugin PHP. Let me delete those. Let's do image again, image JPEG. So let's look at stock image there. Okay, great. So this is 1000 by 700, right? So let's run that again. This time we shouldn't get this error because we fixed the return value and we didn't get the error. And you see it didn't take as long because the image is way smaller in size, in file size. So the resized version is limited to 700. So it chose the bigger side and made it 700 and calculated the other one. So this is the result. It looks exactly the same but smaller in size. All right, so our image resize is working as intended. Alrighty then. Alright, so that does it with the resizing. So in a similar manner, we have to do cropping as well. Cropping is very similar to this. The only difference is, in fact, we use even the same function here. The only difference is we are going to not start from 0, 0. These will actually have values, and then this is going to end in an actual cropping of the image. So the calculation here is what's different. Otherwise, the rest is exactly the same. So we will do a cropping image here in the next video.